Hi everyone. Before we begin, I want you to think about the last time something went wrong financially. Not something dramatic, not a crisis, just one of those moments that shouldn't have been a big deal, but somehow was. The car needed something unexpected. The boiler made a noise it absolutely shouldn't have made. A letter arrived that made your stomach tighten before you even opened it. Have you noticed how often the stress doesn't come from the problem itself, but from the timing of it? From the feeling that life has tapped you on the shoulder at the exact wrong moment and said, "Now." My grandmother figured out how to remove that feeling from life almost entirely. And she did it quietly, without spreadsheets or apps or advice columns. She did it with brown paper envelopes, loose change, and an extraordinary amount of patience. If you've been following our series on Gran Betty, you already know this. She didn't just survive hard times, she mastered them. Not loudly, not heroically. She didn't talk about resilience. She practiced it privately, over decades. Today, I want to go deeper into the philosophy behind her envelope system. Not just how it worked, but why it worked, and why it still matters in a world that profits from keeping us slightly anxious at all times. Because to Gran Betty, a bank balance was just a number. It went up, it went down, it behaved itself some months and misbehaved in others. But an envelope was different. An envelope meant a decision had already been made. It meant future panic had already been dealt with. I remember one afternoon in the mid-90s. I was sitting on her kitchen floor, back against the cupboards, while she did what she called her accounts. There was no rush, no sense of urgency. Just the table, a lace tablecloth, and little brown paper packets spread out like a map of her future. She picked up a coin, turned it over in her fingers, and slipped exactly £1.50 into an envelope marked "The Kitchen Window, 1999.
I laughed and said, "Gran, the window's fine. Why are you giving it money?" She leaned over, tapped her nose, and said, "Darling, windows don't break when you have the money to fix them. They break when you're skint. I'm just making sure I'm never skint when the glass cracks."
At the time, it sounded like a joke. Now I understand it was a philosophy. Gran Betty had realised something most of us never quite put into words. She knew that what we call an emergency is often just an inevitability that arrived before we were ready. And instead of bracing herself for impact, she made sure she arrived early. She was quietly removing the word emergency from her life by treating the future like an appointment instead of a threat. In our modern world, we live under what I think of as the illusion of reactive saving. We're told that as long as we have a general pot, a rainy day fund, an emergency fund, we're being responsible adults. But here's what usually happens. Because the pot is vague, it becomes flexible. We dip into it for birthdays, for sales, for months that feel heavier than usual, and each time we tell ourselves we'll put it back later. But later rarely arrives with the same enthusiasm. So when something genuinely stressful happens, the money might technically be there, but the certainty isn't. We treat savings like a fire extinguisher. Something you grab when the kitchen's already filled with smoke. Gran Betty knew that if you live like that, you spend your life reacting instead of building. Always scrambling. Always slightly behind your own life. And this is usually the moment people recognize themselves. You open your banking app. Your savings look fine, nothing alarming. But even before you check the number, you already know that if something went wrong this week, you'd feel that cold, sinking sensation in your chest. Not because you're careless, not because you're bad with money, not because you don't try hard enough, but because your money doesn't have names. And unnamed money is always nervous money. It doesn't know what it's for, so it can't reassure you. If that feeling feels familiar, this isn't a judgment. It's an invitation. Gran Betty lived by what I call the virtue of the small number. She didn't wait until she had enough to begin. She didn't believe in dramatic resets or total overhauls. She believed in leftovers. Once, years later, I found a tiny tin hidden at the back of her pantry, tucked behind the flour. It was labelled, in her careful handwriting, "The grandkids' first car." Inside were stacks of 50-pence pieces, a few pound coins, and the occasional £5 note. She started that tin when I was still in nappies. She wasn't saving aggressively. She wasn't depriving herself. She was simply redirecting what she wouldn't miss. What she was really doing was time travelling. She was reaching forward nearly 2 decades to make sure that one day I'd be able to drive to my first job without fear or debt. By the time I turned 17, that tin held exactly £800. To everyone else, it looked like a miracle. To her, it was just patience made visible. She used to talk about something she called the sunk cost of stress. She'd say, "When the washing machine packs up and you haven't got the money, you pay twice. You pay the repairman his £40, and you pay yourself in grey hairs and a ruined week." She didn't see stress as unavoidable. She saw it as something you could quietly disarm in advance. She preferred to pay for peace in instalments. She once told me about her friend Mrs. Higgins, who won a small premium bond prize. About £50. Mrs. Higgins spent it on a fancy dinner and a new hat. Gran Betty, who had saved her own £50 over 2 years for a new mattress, was told she was boring. 6 months later, Mrs. Higgins was complaining about her aching back and her empty pockets. Gran Betty was sleeping deeply, on a mattress she'd already paid for with foresight and small decisions. She didn't see saving as deprivation. She saw it as delayed kindness towards herself. All of this rested on one rule she never broke. Once money had a name, it could never change its job. A pound named the roof was the roof. It could not become a cake, or a train ticket, or something on sale that felt urgent in the moment.
She used to say, "Stealing from your future self is the only crime where the villain and the victim are the same person."
Now some of you might be thinking, this sounds nice, but I don't earn enough for this to work properly. Gran Betty would smile at that. She didn't build certainty with large amounts. She built it with continuity. The amount mattered far less than the relationship. Today, we don't need envelopes. We have digital banking with more power than she ever had. But we use it badly. We keep one large pot and ask it to do too many emotional jobs at once. Instead, try what Gran Betty instinctively practiced, an audit of the inevitable. Sit down and list every expense that surprised you last year. The vet, the car, the wedding that somehow cost more than you expected. None of these were surprises. They were just unnamed. Name them and they lose their ability to frighten you. Gran Betty would have had an envelope for each one. A small amount, regularly, quietly. And when the moment arrived, there was no panic. Only recognition. Let's make this practical for a moment. Think of the last thing that stressed you out financially. Not the biggest, the most irritating. Now divide the cost by 12. That number is your peace of mind price per month. Most people are surprised by how gentle it is. She also understood that preparedness alone isn't enough. She saved for delight as deliberately as she saved for repairs. She had an envelope for fancy tea and biscuits. Because even in lean months, she refused to feel deprived. If you don't budget for joy, you'll eventually steal from your future to buy it. That's not a failure of willpower. It's human nature. The result of all this wasn't wealth, it was calm. Gran Betty lived a life with remarkably few financial shocks because she'd already met her future and shaken its hand. And the most beautiful part is this. Systems like this don't just change your bank balance, they change the people who watch you live inside them. Gran Betty didn't teach me money. She taught me steadiness. And steadiness spreads. So here's your invitation. Don't try to fix everything today. Choose one thing, just one. Name it. Open an envelope, digital or otherwise, and put something in it. Even if it's small, especially if it's small. If this video felt like a slower breath in the middle of your day, consider sharing it with someone who might need that same feeling. These ideas are meant to travel quietly, from person to person. If you found value here, give the video a like. It helps more than you might think. And if you want more stories like this about money, time, and building a calmer life, subscribe. We're not here to rush. We're not here to impress. We're here to build lives that feel steady on the inside. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments, what's the one expense that always sneaks up on you? Just name it. Because once it's named, it's already smaller. Gran Betty used to say, the greatest luxury money can buy isn't speed or status. It's the ability to sleep through the night knowing tomorrow has already been handled. Carry your umbrella before the rain begins. If you want to listen to more of Gran Betty's wisdom, please listen to the playlist on the main channel.